Hi, everyone. This is Vishen, and welcome to another session of Consciousness Engineering. Today, I've got a really special guest, Dave Asprey. Now, you may be wondering, why am I in an Indian outfit? Actually, this is a full-on Indian outfit. It's actually International India Day at Mind Valley. Every month, we pick a different world culture, and everyone in the company dresses like that culture. Dave turned on his camera, saw me dressed in an Indian outfit, and he decided to put on his Chinese outfit. Dave, stand up and show them that gorgeous...
Some kind of shirt I bought in Tibet, I think, actually. But it's not really Tibetan.
But check this out. This is Kadi. Kadi is from Estonia. Kadi is decked out...
From Mind Valley office.
Kadi is decked out in a full-on sari.
Wow.
And everyone in our company right now is just celebrating being Indian. So for the 10% of you on our audience who are from India, Happy India Day. I know Independence Day in India is coming up soon. This is an honor for you guys. So let's get started. Dave Asprey. I first heard about Dave, the man in front of me right now, when I was in Silicon Valley with the X Prize Foundation touring a group of synthetic biology labs. Now, the X Prize Foundation is made up of some of the smartest people in the world. And we were talking about productivity hacks and how people were able to run these huge businesses, get amazing things done in the world while still staying productive. The name Dave Asprey, Bulletproof Coffee, kept coming up. So I inquired, and that's when I learned about this man. So Dave has spent close to $300,000 hacking his biology. He is fanatical about taking human capabilities to the next level by investigating and sourcing new systems for living, new systems to raise your IQ, improve your memory, slow down aging, be more productive. And in this call, Dave is going to share with you some of the most mind-bending methods you can apply in your life almost immediately to hack your human potential. Dave is one of the pioneers of the biohacking movement, which is this amazing thing sweeping the valley and many other parts of the world right now, and it's all about enhancing human biology. Dave, I'm now going to leave it to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you do what you do, and then we'd love for you to teach us systems that we can take into our lives.
All right, Vishen, this is quite an honor. I've been in Silicon Valley for close to 20 years. I've worked there, and I live in Victoria, BC today. I was at a whole bunch of companies, speaking of India days, that were founded by Indians. So I feel like I probably celebrated Diwali as much as I did Christmas. But what I found over the time is that I was really focused on being an entrepreneur. So when I was 26, I made $6 million in the dot-com boom at the company that invented modern cloud computing, Exodus Communications. We're Google's first servers, Hotmail's first servers, Yahoo, like you name it, the big companies today. And even now, our communications are flowing over networks that a company that I played a pivotal role in helped to build. So I feel great about that. What I didn't feel so good about, though, was that I weighed close to 300 pounds at the start of this. So I finished my studies in computer science and computer information systems and decision support systems. And I was like, okay, I'm fat. I know I'm fat. I've been fat for a long time, fat since I was a kid, really. I was always puffy. And I worked out an hour and a half a day, half cardio, half weights, for 18 months. That's willpower for you. And what I found, even though I cut my calories, I cut my fat, I ate about 1,800 calories a day, and I'm a big guy, I couldn't lose the weight. It just wouldn't go off. I got strong underneath my fat. So I kind of got irritated, and I said, all right, something's not right because I eat less than my friends. I can measure this. Like, I'm a geek. I'm an engineer. I can see what's happening. And then I started getting brain fog, probably because I was eating inappropriate foods and I was eating not enough food for my brain. So that didn't work very well. The things that the kids said in 7th grade were coming true. I was fat. And now I was stupid because my brain really wouldn't work. And I thought maybe it was just me, like feeling inadequate or something. So I measured my cognitive function using very primitive tools compared to what we have today. And I found that some days my performance was greatly better than others. So this was one of the things that helped the beginning of biohacking. I'm like, wait a minute, there's something in the environment around me or something inside here that's completely jacking up my performance on some days versus others. And I don't know what it is. So when a doctor told me that vitamin C would kill me and I had to stop taking it, I just realized that there was a whole world of anti-aging and smart drugs that I learned about largely because I wanted my brain to work. I was actively using these things to keep myself going in Silicon Valley. Well, the people responsible for my medical care were telling me that it wouldn't work and it would kill me. But I'm like, I would lose my job if it didn't. So I became the leader of an anti-aging nonprofit research group called the Silicon Valley Health Institute, which has itself been around for almost 20 years, bringing in world-class experts every month. So I started interviewing people who knew about weird things in biology. The guy who wrote the book on smart drugs, the actual book called Smart Drugs and Nutrients 2, I became friends with him. And it's amazing because for the last 15 years, I've lost 100 pounds. I've raised my IQ substantially. I've used techniques that total more than 20 points in things you can do in order to raise your IQ. And I've made my brain go to the state where if I miss a word, most people during the day, they sit there and they go, why did I open the fridge? Or what was I going to say? Or I can't remember why I was going to do that. I lived like that all the time. In fact, there were times when if I didn't have my notebook, I couldn't tell you what happened in a meeting because I was too tired, too stressed, I was inflamed, all those things. And I've gotten to the point now where if I miss a word even once in a day, like something's wrong, like my biology isn't working. And it's not that I'm guilty of something, it's that something's wrong because my expectation for how I feel every day is to just be able to bring it. And I'm 41. And if you ask any of the guys in their mid-20s who work for Bulletproof today, like I'm running at beyond their capacity. And I'm essentially getting to be what I'd call an older guy, right? You know, my beard's slightly gray, like, oh no. So this is awesome. And there's method to the madness. And I can actually walk everyone listening through the things that work. And what became really apparent to me over time is that order of operations matters. So when you're building a system, if you try and, well, let's think of building a cake. It's actually easiest. If you like really focus on the frosting, but your cake is falling and it's soggy in the middle and it won't hold up the frosting very well, you're not going to get it. And one of the mistakes that I was making, one of the mistakes that a lot of people still make is they focus on the frosting. And the frosting here is actually cognitive performance. So what's the cake? What's the foundation? The foundation is biological performance. So when I work with clients, and I don't work with too many clients, they're mostly CEOs or Hollywood movie star kind of people. And I do that to keep myself fresh and because these are usually people with unusual demands. So it's fun and interesting for both of us. But what I do is I sit down and say, all right, how are you feeling? Like, what do you mean? Well, I'm happy or whatever. No, like how much energy do you have? Because what I find is that most people waste a huge amount of energy on basic biological needs. So we get that out of the way and suddenly their energy goes way up. And here are the 3 biological needs to think about in your system. Imagine a big floppy Labrador retriever. You know, these are the dogs that drool and wag their tail and they're nice, but generally, well, they're dogs. So what does a Labrador retriever do? Go, look! And right away, the Labrador retriever looks away. So there's distractibility. And distractibility comes from this desire to always see what's next. And a lot of that is actually at a very biological survival of your meat. It's a survival thing. It's about, is there a tiger about to eat me? Is there something that's a bigger opportunity? So you get kind of this slobbering dog that's in your mind that says, what's next? What's next? What's next? And it distracts you. And then you use your willpower, your human mind, your prefrontal cortex says, pay attention. So then your mind goes here and you bring it back. Your mind goes here and you bring it back. Like you might have maybe heard some flavors of meditation in there, except you're not meditating. You're just trying to pay attention in a meeting because your mind is basically untrained. The next thing, though, that this Labrador does that's even worse is Labrador says, oh, look, spoiled food. I think I'll eat it. And Labradors want to eat everything the same way that the meat in your body wants to eat everything because there might be a famine. You never know. You better stuff it in your face. So if there's a bagel or a cookie, whatever your nemesis is, sitting in the conference room table in front of you, Here's the conversation in your head. It goes like this: eat it. No. Eat it. No, right? That's the conversation. But here's the terrible thing. And this is why low-calorie diets just make me sad. Every time you say no, you are wasting a finite resource, because your willpower, and we've proven this, is a finite resource. You have so many decisions every day before you just run out of decision-making capacity. And if you're wasting your decision every second saying, no, no, no bagel, shut up, no bagel, it doesn't work. And this is what a huge number of people do all the time. That little bowl of candy on the conference room table, it's kryptonite, because it makes everyone in there who has biological problems, which if you eat like a lot of people, it's most people, they have their blood sugars crashing, they have toxins, and their meat is going, could you give me some sugar? Come on, sugar, sugar, sugar. And so instead of paying attention to the meeting, you split your consciousness and you pay attention to the sugar and then the meeting and the sugar and the meeting, and you go back and forth. And it's harmful to your self-image. It's harmful to your ability to pay attention. And the fact that you care at a biological level about the sugar is a sign that you've not been eating very well. And the final behavior that Labrador has is the other one that gets us into trouble, that has to do with species survival. And that one is what the Labrador would do. It says, oh, look, a leg. I think I'll try and mate with it. So inappropriate mating behaviors are the other thing where we waste a huge amount of our time and energy. And not that mating isn't fun and pleasurable and useful for propagating the species. All of the above are true. But it does tend to take up a very large percentage of your mental bandwidth at times when you don't want it to. So there are practices, ones we'll talk about today, that can help you in all of those domains. But most of them start out with giving yourself more energy. And I don't mean, drinking coffee, although we will get into drinking bulletproof coffee. What I mean is giving yourself more mitochondrial energy. And this is where you can really start upgrading your system. Because no matter if your system is Byzantine and screwed up, or whether you have a perfectly elegant way of running your life and operating yourself, if you just have more power to turn the crank at the beginning of the system, everything kicks more ass, and you can take the extra power you have and apply it towards building a better system. And I am religious. Keep in mind my specialty, my degree is decision support systems. So it's all about building systems that do stuff for me so I don't have to do them anymore. And just having enough energy to put into that system does it. And as an example there, I was working full-time as a vice president at a publicly traded internet security company when I started Bulletproof. And I received accolades, got raises, like I was doing a more than adequate job for that large company. At the same time, I started the blog and started this. And the reason it worked is because I built a system that let me do it in very little time. So I could pay attention to my day job that was paying my bills, keeping my kids fed and things like that. And that's sort of only possible when you have enough energy to put into the system to provide focus for an executive level job, and enough focus left over, even after being a dad and a parent and a husband, in order to apply this towards putting down content, towards creating a blog and doing the things that I did. So let's get to what you do for your biology. First thing you can do, and it sounds incredibly simple, eat more fat. And I don't mean canola oil, corn oil, vegetable oil, and all the other stuff like that. Not even olive oil. I mean good old fashioned, since it's India month, ghee, clarified butter, or it could just be butter. And it should be butter the way your grandmother would have had it, which means butter from grass-fed cows, not the industrial corn and soy-fed butter, which is so common in processed food industry. So it's cheaper to feed a cow a bunch of low-quality foods like that. Then what comes out of the cow as milk contains a much higher level of toxins, but it contains fats that don't work well for your cells. And there's two big parts of the cell that we'll pay attention to. There's the cell membrane. Itself is made out of droplets of fat. And if you're like most people and you've been eating stuff cooked in the seed oils that we never evolved to eat, your cell membrane becomes replaced with droplets of fat that are unstable in oxygen or light or heat. These unstable cell membranes don't function properly, and they actually cause inflammation throughout the body, subtle amounts of it, because they're always spitting out free radicals. It takes, believe it or not, 600 days to replace half of your cell membrane fats. So if tomorrow you said, wow, I'm going to do what the traditions in almost every culture always did, which was eat more fat when it's available, more healthy fat, more saturated fat, more coconut oil. To some extent, palm oil, not as much though as coconut oil, or butter. When you do that, along with some fish or fish oil, or other sources of EPA and DHA, you can get it from algae if you're vegetarian. What happens then is over time, your body literally rebuilds the outer lining of all of your cells. And when it does that, it can better express insulin receptors. Everything works better and your cellular energy goes up. Part of the reason that also happens is because inside the cell is the mitochondria. Mitochondria are power plants that came from bacteria, we think, from an evolutionary thing many, many millions of years ago. And these are the things that make energy in your cells. They make ATP. And they can make ATP from two things. They can make it from sugar, which is the way most of us do all the time, especially if you're a vegetarian or you eat a normal diet with soda and things like that. You're super sugar powered. And sugar goes up, down, up, down. You get sugar spikes, you get sugar crashes. Now, you want to have consciousness engineering. The first step to having consciousness is having the mitochondria in your brain work. And the mitochondria in your brain are not evenly distributed. The human parts of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, have an unusual density of them. Which means if you have a problem with your energy levels, you'll feel it first in the parts of your brain responsible for willpower and rational thought. And this is a great thing for your survival, because if you're starving, if you're injured, if you're wounded, or things just aren't running well, can you do what an animal can do without your human brain? You have to eat something in front of you. You have to reproduce, and you have to run away from things that might kill you. That's all you have to do for humanity to continue. So if a meteor hits tomorrow, 10 humans may do those behaviors and survive enough for the species to propagate. You're wired for that, but it doesn't help you live. It doesn't help you thrive. It doesn't help you be in a state of high performance. You've got to take care of the mitochondria if you care about the brain. The mitochondria in the brain and in the rest of the body can run on two fuel sources. One would be glucose, sugar, and you get that from eating carbs, including things like rice, potatoes, bread, sugar, fructose, corn syrup, even fruit itself. And a little bit of that isn't a big deal. A lot of it is destructive for your consciousness. The other thing that your brain can run on is called ketones. And you can get ketones by restricting the amount of sugar you eat or fasting, and then your body goes into fat burning mode. And when that happens, your consciousness turns on. You will feel usually like crap for a day or two as you start getting used to this, because your body objects to having to switch on fat burning mechanisms. Once that happens, you have amazing amounts of energy. And if you've ever fasted for a day or two, you know the feeling. Go ahead.
So Dave, what you're saying is that the way our society sees it, we built a society that abhors fat. When you go to a supermarket, you choose the low-fat products. What you're saying is that is not necessarily right, that there is a certain specific kind of fat that our body needs. But what is wrong is a high consumption of sugars.
High consumption of sugars and our high consumption of bad fats. And if you think about it, a lot of what I've studied is emergent phenomena, emergent behaviors. So we set up a system where there's a bunch of companies and their job is to sell you food. Over time, they make a bunch of decisions that create a system that makes you buy food a lot. And if you want people to buy food a lot, 6 times a day, there's people who recommend eating 6 times a day. I eat once or twice a day and I'm so full and satisfied the rest of the time. I don't care about food. You bring me lunch, I'm like, I could eat lunch, I could not eat lunch. I go on an 18-hour flight, I'm not going to eat airplane chow because it's not very good food. And my energy won't dip. My brain will work. I'll feel great because I'm fat adapted. And talk about
that's insane. I've never heard of anything like that.
It's really caught on in Silicon Valley now, this idea of intermittent fasting. And the traditional way of doing intermittent fasting is you skip breakfast and you have a late lunch and you eat lunch and dinner, same number of calories as always. So you have a big lunch and a big dinner. And then you just don't eat for 18 hours. It sounds impossible. And what happens to most people when they try this is they start feeling really cranky and irritable and tired around 11 o'clock. And then have a bad middle of the day. The bulletproof intermittent fasting technique, which is coming out in my book, and if you don't mind, bulletproofdietbook.com, if you sign up there, I'll send you all this stuff for free anyway. But you'll get the infographic that explains how to do all this. Um, what you can do with this kind of protocol is you wake up in the morning and you have coffee, and I make a coffee that's lower in toxins that cause a crash later in the day. And you add grass-fed butter or ghee, and you can get it Irish butter, or if you're international, you can get Anchor butter from New Zealand quite often. And grass-fed really matters. I'm not joking there. And this was inspired by drinking Tibetan yak butter tea and trying to get that effect. So I tested every butter I could get in order to find like, oh, this is what works. And then the other kind of magic ingredient is an extract of coconut oil called brain octane oil, or MCT oil isn't quite as strong. And if you can't get those, you can go out and just buy coconut oil. Coconut oil is about 6% as effective as brain octane oil, but it still has something in it that causes your brain to go into fat burning mode, so you get a boost of your consciousness. Even if all you did after this was say, I'm going to eat a tablespoon of coconut oil every day and I'm going to ignore everything else Dave Asprey said, you're still going to get some slight benefit from that. And the benefit goes into the mitochondria in your brain. When you get those running, your consciousness, your ability to apply willpower and rationality to the animal inside your body, it goes up. And this is really important. So go ahead.
So just to recap, to make sure that people are really getting this right, what you're proposing, what you found to be an optimal way of functioning is skip breakfast, but you start with a cup of coffee. You're not adding milk, you're not adding sugar, a cup of coffee, but what you're adding is ghee or grass-fed butter.
And you do that and you blend it so that you get a creamy latte. Mm-hmm. It's not disgusting.
It's not.
It tastes amazing.
It's actually pretty good. I've tried it. I tried going for straight black coffee. That was hard. But when you add ghee or butter to it, it seems to taste good. And what you're saying is you add coconut oil to it or brain octane oil.
Yes.
Okay. And where can we get brain octane oil from?
Brain octane oil is available at a few grocery stores, but usually you buy it online. Upgradedself.com is a good place to get it. Yeah, you'll find it. I linked to it from the Bulletproof Executive blog, bulletproofexec.com. And I make this stuff, just full disclosure. Like I use it every day. I give it to my kids. I give it to my grandmother. And the reason you do it is it gives you these fat burning bodies that give you extra mental energy. And it is extracted from coconut oil. It's just the tiniest fat that's in coconut oil without all the other fats. So you can get the equivalent of taking 18 tablespoons of coconut oil, but it's 1 tablespoon of oil.
Wow. And that's good because I find coconut oil hard, but brain octane fuel sounds great. Tell me the website again where we can get that from.
Upgradedself.com.
Upgradedself.com.
Yeah. And now, you can go to bulletproofexec.com, the main blog for Bulletproof. And I link to all this stuff from there as well.
Now, everything, for those of you listening, everything we share is stuff that we personally test. I've not yet gone on the 30-day, I've not gone 30 days with the Bulletproof diet. But my business partner, Juan, who runs Mind Valley in Latin America, did. And Juan was in awe at what happened. He said that he lost 1 kilogram a week. So after 3 weeks, when I spoke to him, he had done it for 3 weeks. And that's why we're now bringing you Dave Asprey, because we know someone here at Mind Valley has tested this. He lost 1 kilogram a week, and he says he was performing at peak energy. And he was skipping breakfast every day and just doing bulletproof coffee, just like what you said. Then the normal lunch, the normal dinner, he would have dinner before 8 p.m. and then not eat anything between 8 and going to bed.
And he didn't experience hunger or food cravings either, which when you eat just fat without the protein, without any sugar in the morning in your coffee, you just don't care about food. And in fact, a good friend of mine and one of my advisors, the guy who started the Men's Health brand years and years ago, was on the Bulletproof diet for 6 months. And he said, Dave, I finally quit because I just got tired of never being hungry. Like I wanted to actually be hungry again.
So Dave, how many cups of bulletproof coffee would one take a day?
One or two. Most people don't need more. So I'll drink the equivalent of a large coffee, about 12 to 14 ounces, with 1 or 2 tablespoons of butter. I used to use a lot more butter. When you first start this, your body may tell you, crank up the butter. It's okay to do that. When you get new cell membranes after a while, you want less. And 1 to 2 tablespoons of brain octane oil. I usually use 2 because I really like that effect. And then I just don't care about food for the rest of the day. I might have another cup of coffee at 12 or 1 just because I like it. And I might make that bulletproof coffee if I'm skipping lunch. But the cool thing is there's some calories in there, but because it's only fat, the bacteria in your gut don't know what to do with it really. And your body says, well, there's nothing to do here. I guess I'll go into fat burning mode. And when that happens, your body starts burning fat and it makes it easier to lose weight. But best of all, you get the cognitive benefits of being in this fat burning mode.
So explain that. You're drinking ghee. You're literally drinking butter and ghee. How much weight do people lose at the end of, if someone would experiment with this for 30 days, how much weight realistically would someone lose?
It depends on their age, gender, and how much they have to lose. But if you're big and you have weight to lose, I've had people lose 1 pound a day on something like this, which is, people say that's not possible. I'm like, well, we're breaking some rules here. Like it's a tighter system where we're interacting with the bacteria in your gut in a very specific way by changing the ratio of the bacteria predominant in fat people don't do well on this diet. So your fat people bacteria go down, your thin people bacteria go up. We're hacking the energy in your brain, and we're actually hacking your hunger with your leptin levels, and we're giving you raw materials to make testosterone and progesterone and things like that are all made out of fat. So it's basically, we're looking at all these different things you can do to tell the body, hey, it's time to burn fat in a serious way. If you're, say, a normal person who, you have 20 pounds or something to lose, it's pretty easy to lose about 7 or 8 pounds in the first week or two. That's because when you start eating less carbohydrates, you lose water. So almost any low carb diet, you can lose a bunch of weight. You get all excited, your pants fit, but you didn't lose any fat. It's what happens after the first week that really tells you what happens there. And like you said, Juan was losing a kilo a week. Very, very achievable. So 2-3 pounds a week happens all the time.
So one more thing. So as we're doing this, we should try to consume as little carbs as possible. So cut down on the bread, potatoes, and pasta, right?
Yes, and there's a couple more nuances. And by the way, all this is free on the Bulletproof Diet infographic. Like, it's one page that tells you all to put it on your fridge and you're done. You can print it out. Bulletproofdietbook.com. It's free. What you do there is you look at the little timing guide that's on there. And what you want to do is eat no carbs, especially as you're getting into this, for 3 or 4 days, maybe even for 7 days. And a lot of low carb diets, they'll tell you just eat no carbs forever. The problem is that this gets to be biologically very expensive. So what you do is you eat carbs once or twice a week, and you do it towards the evening. So it's not a zero carbohydrate diet, and it's not a sustained fat burning ketosis diet. What you're doing is you're saying, go into fat burning mode, hang out there for a little while, have enough carbohydrates to come out. But don't eat, croissants and beer and pizza, because you pay a large biological cost for that as well. So what you're doing is you're trying to remove all of the influence that food has on your consciousness. We're like, okay, I can eat food and I'm not going to salivate. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to fantasize about food. I'm going to enjoy my food. It's going to taste great. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel nourished, but I'm going to lose the baggage that comes with the food, because the Labrador in my head is fed and my body doesn't feel like it's starving. And when you get there, that is just liberating. When you're like, wow, I was at the meeting and someone with cookies out, and I looked at them and I was like, oh, cookies. And I didn't suppress any desire because I'd already hacked it. Like, that's a beautiful thing.
And one more thing, what type of mental and productivity benefits do you get from this? Because I've heard great things about that as well. I'd love for you to tell us.
Bulletproof coffee will rock your day. And right now, there are Hollywood movie stars who use this, like Jeremy Piven from Entourage uses Bulletproof coffee. We've made it for him on the set. Third Eye Blind, the band, I've made it for them in their tour bus before they go on stage. They're all drinking it because if you've ever seen the kind of energy that professional musicians like that put out on stage, it is one of the highest intensity things you can do. I mean, Vishen, you've been a public speaker, and you have to pull all this energy and you focus it for your audience to really help them. And these guys probably do it even more when they're jumping around and playing guitar and all. So these are super high performers, and they do this for that high performance state. You can expect to just effortlessly have your brain work. When you ask it for something, it'll do it. and it'll do it faster than it did before. And this is because it's able to use glucose and is able to use this other form of fat. And there's a reason it's called brain octane, because it helps. Coffee itself has a couple things going for it. In fact, if you do a Google search for coffee and health, you'll find like a gazillion articles about all the good stuff coffee does for you. But what they don't tell you about, unless you dig deeply into the coffee science, and I write about all this coffee science on the Bulletproof blog, is that coffee has a downside. So you go up and then you crash. But the crash isn't a caffeine crash. It's because coffee has healthy stuff and coffee has toxins. Toxins strong enough that the EU and much of Asia have standards, parts per billion, for these toxins that commonly form in coffee. And I test for levels far, far below that. And so it's a clean coffee. So instead of going up and crashing, you go up and you feel good. So if you do this with, especially just like the cheapest coffee you can find, you're going to experience food cravings later in the day. When you do it with really high-end coffee that's tested preferably, you'll feel a difference. If you look on the website, I tell you how to find the most likely to be clean coffee in your neighborhood. So you don't have to buy my beans. Just I got tired of not always feeling the same, so I made my own beans. When you do this, you can expect to have one of the most productive days of your life. No question about it. And maybe more importantly, when your energy levels drop, one of the things that happens is you get cranky. And you make bad decisions and you're unkind to the people you care about. So you snap at your spouse, you yell at your kids, you tell your boss to go F himself, or whatever it is you do when you're really upset. And then you regret it later and you waste a huge amount of energy and time. Emotional stability comes with blood sugar control and comes with functioning mitochondria in your brain. So expect to be like, wow, I was nice today and I felt really good and I got my job done and I had energy to spare at the end of the day. That's my goal every day, because I never had that when I was, a 26-year-old, 300-pound fat guy with brain fog. It was never part of my birthright. I had to build it. So let's go from there up to the next level. So let's say you got your biology functioning and you're doing pretty well on that front. And you don't spend a lot of time every day going, wow, that bagel, and you feel like you're nourished and fed, and you can take it or leave it when it comes to food. What's next? The next thing that happens is another survival part, and this has more to do with that distractibility thing. And this is your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. And when I work with clients there, I use a technique called heart rate variability training. And it's interesting. Your heart rate is how many times per minute is your heartbeat. Very simple. But what's really much more interesting biologically is, what was the spacing of all those heartbeats? Did they all happen in the first 10 seconds and then nothing? That means you're dead. Or were they spread out? Were they spread out evenly, or were they in little clusters? And there's a ton of information in the heartbeats themselves. And it's actually between the heartbeats. So we look at how are they spaced out? Well, there's software and there are applications, things I use with clients, that use that to determine whether you're in a stressed state or an unstressed state. And funny enough, you can actually feel when you're in a stressed state, but it's not something that you're going to feel until you're really stressed. One of these things I use is from the HeartMath Institute. It's called an inner balance sensor. It clips on your ear. And every time your nervous system throws you into fight or flight mode, the light turns red. And every time you're in a parasympathetic dominant relaxed focus mode, the light turns green. And it helps you breathe in and breathe out. So there are techniques you can do. In fact, I can walk the audience through one of the techniques today. And
we'd love to.
So we'll do that. And you just don't know for sure if you're doing it right. Just like meditation. How many times you've meditated and done it wrong and you didn't get the benefit? And you don't even know you didn't get the benefit, so you kept doing it for a long time until you did it a little bit different and then you did it right. Well, that's annoying. So from a hurry, meditate faster perspective, having a little sensor that turns green when you do it right and turns red when you do it wrong is awesome. So one of my clients is a hedge fund trader, and he called me all excited. He said, Dave, I finally plugged the thing in, the inner balance sensor, on an airplane because I had nothing better to do. And I got myself into the green zone and it felt awesome. Like I just was so energized. It was amazing. And then I thought about work and it went red right away. And he said it took me 2 weeks to be able to think about work without it going red. So what happened is, unconsciously, without his permission, every time he thought about work, the Labrador in his body was ready to run away. And it wasn't serving him. This is a very high performing guy who was, I don't know if it was his jet or not he was flying in, but it probably was that kind of a guy. And even better yet, he said, Dave, I got in charge of myself. So then I put it on my ear and I went to do a trading day at the firm. And at the second the market bell went open, I went into the red zone and I stayed in a stress mode as long as the market was open. So the Labrador in his head was convinced that he needed to run away or it would die as long as market trading was happening. And he realized, my God, I'm wasting all this energy and time and I'm exhausted at the end of the day. What if I turned it off? And that's the technique that you learn. When it's in the red zone, what brings it back to green? So step one, learn when your body does this to you, because it's not very easy to know. And step two, play whack-a-mole. Every time your body does it, you whack it until it stops. And here's the technique to whack it. And it's really pretty straightforward. What you do is you're going to breathe in for about 5 seconds, and then you're going to visualize something. And since I'm talking, don't breathe in yet, because, well, you'd have to hold your breath for a long time. When your lungs are full, you're going to visualize the feeling that you get when you hug your spouse, when you held your baby for the first time, when your mother hugged you, or whatever it is, puppies, whatever it is that makes you have a warm, glowing feeling in your chest. And I don't want you to just think of the situation. Visualize the feeling in your body that happens when it happens. So you breathe in, and then you bring on that feeling, conjure the feeling, make it warm in your heart, and then you breathe out for 5 seconds. And as you breathe out, you just let that feeling glow and expand all around you. It's a different feeling because you're focusing all of it on your heart. And what we don't have right now is a sensor plugged in, because if we had the sensor plugged in, one of two things would have happened. It would have said, good job, you got a green, or it would have said, you breathed in for 5 seconds, you breathe out for 5 seconds, but you didn't turn the feeling on. Because when you authentically turn on that feeling, it changes the spacing between your heartbeats. Your heart will not lie to you. You can lie to your heart and tell it, oh, don't worry about that, that's nothing to be afraid of, but the heart's going to do what it's going to do. Since we're monitoring that, you can't deceive yourself. Either you felt that feeling, and that feeling is the antidote to stress. So now you feel the feeling of your body moving into stress, and then the antidote for stress. And when you practice that skill, it takes about 10 minutes a day with a sensor for 6 weeks with the average client I work with. And at the end of that time, without the sensor, they can turn it on. And it is amazing. You've got enough energy because you're eating the bulletproof diet, you've got bulletproof coffee. And now, whenever you go into stress mode, you feel it, and then you can take yourself out of it. I had a really stressful thing happen about a year or so ago. I got a random call that said, would you be on CNN? I'm like, I've never been on CNN. This is badass. I'm excited. So, because you fly to San Francisco at a minute's notice and drop everything and show up at the studio. So I show up, and the studio it's like the Borg. Like, some guy lets me in, and all it is like a red light on a camera and a bunch of monitors. I can't see the people I'm talking to. Highly stressful situation. You're going to be on national TV. And there's no human feedback. So I had 15 minutes. What I do, I sat there. I didn't have my sensor with me, so I just did the exercise. I have it wired. I know the feeling. And you can still see it on YouTube. I rocked that interview. No stuttering, no lost words. I was thinking independently. I had some tough questions, and I nailed them. And it's because I had totally spent time telling my nervous system, like, you know, this is a comfortable place. My stress was gone. And you could see it. Every time I go on stage to give a really important presentation, and I do this for a living now, I'm on stage very, very often, I always take at least a minute or two to put myself into a parasympathetic dominant mode, which lets me empathically connect with my audience. It lets them see my true authenticity and integrity and things like that. You can do this before you negotiate $1 million deal. Do I do it? Yeah, I do before I go into negotiate. And I've run corporate development for public companies. You want to be in charge of your biology. And if you feed your biology right, and then you own your stress response, It's not even fair what you can do to people who are completely freaked out, and then you set a bowl of candy in front of them, and they're down for the count.
How long someone who has trained with this with this system? How long does it take for them to get rid of their stress response? Is it a minute, 3 minutes?
It's once you're trained and you know the skill, it's 1 or 2 breaths for the average stress. Now, I say average. Very, very many people have something that's traumatic to them. And you oftentimes have no idea where or why it came from, because it could have happened when you were 6 months old. It's like a memory stored in your body. So you could be like, I can turn off my stress response in a minute. And then something happens that doesn't make any sense, but it pushes an ancient button that your Labrador's like, oh my God, no, really, I am going to die now. That kind of stress, a trauma-based deep stress, you're not going to fix that in 2 breaths. You're going to want to go deeper for that. And since those deep traumas cause most of the recurring behavior patterns in us, we can hack those next. You want to go there?
Yes, we would love to hear about how to hack deep traumas.
All right. My favorite way of doing this is with neurofeedback. And neurofeedback is a relatively recent science. And the idea is you hook electrodes to your head, the equivalent of a lie detector, and you put that electrical signal through an amplifier to a computer. The computer plays music back to you in response to your brainwaves. The reason this is kind of amazing is that your brain, for all of its amazing capabilities, it only points outwards. It has no nerves inside the brain. And that's why you can see Hannibal Lecter open up someone's brain and the guy's still talking. And that's why brain surgeons actually will have you awake during brain surgery, because they can poke into your brain and you don't feel it. There's no nerves there. So the brain is unaware of what it's doing. And if you're actually a neurologist or a brain surgeon listening to this, yes, the 5th cranial nerve does put into the brain. That's the only one. So what that means is that the brain, the organ in your body most responsible for optimizing, for building systems, is blind to itself. And it's desperate for information about its state. So when you use a computer to tell the brain what it's doing, it recognizes within minutes, wait, that sound, that's me. And it's like showing a chimpanzee a mirror for the first time. And there's neat studies of that. The chimpanzee's like, oh, there's spinach in my teeth, and they'll clean their teeth. They didn't know about it before because they never had a mirror, right? So we can do that for our brains, and the brain will self-optimize, which is, I've seen just dramatic things happen, especially for those old, deep things that we're not even aware of. We're not supposed to be aware of them. And these things are mostly set in the first 7 years of life, and they're biologically useful. And you've seen them in animals like a deer. There's a very simple system for surviving if you're a deer. And it goes something like this. If you hear a sound, freeze. That's a stick breaking. If you hear it again, run. Like, there you go. It works. Well, our human patterns are a little bit more complex than that. And we get weird things like, if, people are yelling and there's smoke, I'm probably going to die. Okay, so maybe there was a fire when you were 2, but at some point later in life, that same thing happens and it triggers something in you, and all of a sudden you're not in charge of your body anymore. So you subtly change your behaviors all the rest of the time without knowing it. So here's an example of one of the patterns that I had no clue of. When I was born, I had the cord wrapped around my neck. I didn't lose oxygen. I didn't get brain damage from it. But my body came into the world thinking the world was a hostile place because there was something trying to choke me. No clue. There's great science. People who are born with that or other things that are really traumatic when they're coming into the world tend to have a heightened stress response to everything. So what that means is that I spent a lot of time before I understood this about myself, and I reset my biology that way, expecting bad things to happen when they weren't going to happen. And as you know, and people listening know, if you expect bad things to happen all the time, they are more likely to happen. You sort of seek out bad things and you do it unconsciously. And you don't do it because you're a bad person or because you're stupid or irrational. You do it because the part of your body responsible for this is the part that's supposed to keep you alive. And it's not supposed to let you control it. It wants to be in charge. Spiritual practices might call this the ego. It's, the devil on one shoulder, the devil on the other. But what it is a very useful automated system with stupid rules that you didn't write. And you have the ability to go in and rewrite those rules. And neurofeedback is one way to do it. There's a way to do neurofeedback for about $18 a session at home. And I have that on the website. That's the cheapest way I know of to do it. The way I take most of the very successful clients that I work with is called 40 Years of Zen. This is a 7-day intensive program where you spend most of the time every day with a lie detector hooked up to your head, and you're teaching your brain to be in the same state as someone who spent 40 years doing a daily Zen practice and an advanced Zen meditator. The side effect is, for the average person, 12 IQ points of increase that stick with you at least a year later, and oftentimes much longer than that. So it changes the way you think forever. And the reason it works is because every time you deceive yourself about one of these rules, your score goes down. So there's a lie detector, and you cannot lie to yourself when there's a lie detector hooked up to your head. So what you end up doing for the entire time after the first couple of days, when you get over how incredibly cool it is that you're doing this, is stuff that makes you want to cry or throw up or both. And it's because you're doing the deep work that reprograms these things, and all the ways you've deceived yourself about the way the world is or about the way you are, they become apparent, and the computer doesn't lie. It's your own brain. Your brain doesn't work as well when you deceive yourself, and you can see it, you can measure it. So you face your inner demons, and when you're done, it's over, and you're now in charge, and you're now aware of when your body is doing this to you. There is a shortcut, though, for people who are dealing with very specific things that trigger them. So let's say that every time you get stressed at work, you're overwhelmed, you have too much work, and your boss asks you to do something else, you feel like helpless, or you feel super irritated and angry. Like it's not a rational feeling. Like, okay, I'm busy. They asked for more. It wasn't about me, but the feeling is like my boss is a total jerk. This is really common, right? Well, the odds of that actually being the case, that your boss is a jerk, they may be, but the odds are that this is an automated system in your body that's doing that to you, because you don't want to face the fact that either you weren't as efficient as you could have been, or you needed to push back. So you're basically playing an old system that you didn't want to be playing, and you don't know you're doing it because these feelings happen and you think they're real. There's something called EMDR, eye movement something. I always forget what the DR stands for, but what they do, and I've done this, it's profound. It takes about an hour, and you do it with a psychologist. They move your eyes back and forth at a certain speed. It's not hypnosis at all. But the way this works is a guy studying psychiatry was watching tennis, and he stopped moving his head, started moving his eyes only, and flipped into a strange state. And now they actually have a little wand, and they guide your eyes back, forth, back, forth. Well, you're talking about whatever this experience or this response is. And really strangely, your brain goes into rule reset mode when you do this right. And all of a sudden, it's like you're hovering over yourself. You see that whatever situation caused this, and the weirdest stuff will come out of your subconscious, but it's very fast. And when you're done, you're like, wow, that was intense and weird. But you literally get the sensation that the scenario that caused this problem for you, you see it shrink and shrink and shrink in your mind, and then recede. And it's gone. And the way you used to act, which might have been, oh, I'm going to stop talking to my boss for a couple of days, and I'm just going to sort of hide from this. You're like, you know what? I'm sorry, but I have these 25 priorities, and this is number 26. There's no way I'm going to do all of them. Is that okay? And the boss will be like, oh yeah, you didn't need to do these other ones, and everything works out. But if you didn't have the ability to communicate about what's really happening versus just hide because that's your default rule for this, and perform at your best, your career will suffer. And where does this bite you the most? Actually, it's not at work, it's in relationships. So in your relationship, you unconsciously play all kinds of patterns that you didn't know were there. And these are things that you saw in other people, usually when you were very young. And you're totally feelings driven. So if you have stuff, especially patterns and behaviors you identify you don't like, neurofeedback is the strongest thing I know. The fastest thing for surgical rule changing is EMDR. These are both very new technologies, and they totally rock.
Amazing. So how do you, is there a simple thing we can do with the eye movements that you could teach us right now?
There isn't. You really, really want to go do the professional, you need someone there with you for a couple reasons. One, you can go to some really dark places way faster than you think you could. And it's not uncommon, even for grown men who are not emotionally into this kind of thing, to just cry, because what you're doing is you're getting in touch with essentially rules that you didn't know were there, that are not serving you, and they're scarier than hell. And they're supposed to be scary. Your body designs them to be scary. And that's because you're not supposed to rewrite your own code. The code is there to keep you from dying. And the code believes that you might actually write stupid rules that could make you die. Since your number one job is to live long enough to reproduce and make the species survive, those rules are wrapped in terror and fear and all sorts of things to make them unattractive to hack. And this is why when you meditate, you're gently touching those things. And this is why some of the faster paths of meditation from Hindu schools or from Buddhist schools, you can have profound progress. You can also go nuts. And the going nuts part is when you push too hard on this part and it pushes back. So you're dealing with some pretty strong wiring. You probably wouldn't open up the fuse box in your car and sort of start yanking wires out. Get a little bit of help on this. It costs about $75 a session in North America, depending on what city you're in. It's not expensive, and it's probably cheaper in many other countries. EMDR.
EMDR. Perfect. So that's a great recommendation. So we started out with, just to wrap up, we started out with being able to neutralize animal instincts towards food and eating, and being able to have optimal energy by having 2 meals a day and using bulletproof coffee, because of how it intermittent fasting and bulletproof coffee combined gives us boost of energy, allows our body to more efficiently process food, makes us more focused throughout the day. Then we went on to the idea of being able to rapidly bring yourself out of stress states, and you gave us a simple technique that would take us really just 2 deep breaths, probably less than 3 minutes, to bring us out of the stress state. And finally, to overcome trauma that often we take on before the age of 7. You recommended a particular form of therapy, which is highly cost effective. And what was the search term again to find these in our city?
EMDR.
EMDR.
Eye movement DR, and I could Google it, but it's
eye movement DR. No, that's good enough.
It's something reflex. I think it's dissociative reflex, but I always get the last two wrong because it doesn't really matter. Just EMDR, you'll find it.
EMDR. So thank you so much, Dave. This was a great lesson, and I know the audience is really going to benefit from this. And like I said, those of you listening, bulletproof coffee, that whole diet thing, we've tested it out here at Mind Valley. Juan lost 1 kilogram a week, and he says he's performing at optimal brain performance levels. So go ahead, try these out. Check out Dave Asprey's website, Google bulletproofcoffee.com, and there will be an infographic that we're going to provide which summarizes everything for you. Thank you.
Thank you.